Here we go with another exciting day in the wonderful land of algebra. Here is your bell work or warm-up for today. I would like you to write these 5 down on the top of your notes, work them out, and when you are done, come back to the video and check your answers. Take a moment, look at the answers, see how you did. If you made any mistakes, I'd like you to take a moment, go back into your warm-up, and see if you can make any corrections as needed. These are some of the skills we are going to begin to apply day after day, so you need to be good on these concepts. When you're ready, move on to see our objective for today. I am excited. We are finally getting to my favorite part of algebra. We are multiplying polynomials. Your objective that you are writing down for today is I will be able to multiply polynomials, combine like terms, and write polynomials in standard form. Pause for as long as you need to get your objective down, and then move on when you're ready. Here are the basic steps that we are going to follow. The first thing you are going to do is you're going to distribute the term that is in front of the parentheses. Hint is you're multiplying the numbers, multiplying the coefficients, and adding the exponents. This is why we had to learn 9.1 and 9.2 before we could get full on into Unit 9. Next, you will add the like terms. Please remember from last week that adding like terms means it must be the same variable to the same power. Once you are done, make sure you have written your answer in standard form. That means the highest exponent comes first and the exponents go in descending order. Once you have those steps written down, we're going to look at our first example. You will notice the 4x is sitting outside the parentheses. That is what we are going to distribute to all 3 terms inside the parentheses. Remember, coefficient times coefficient, 4 times 2 is 8. We will add the exponents of the x's. Notice there is 1 here plus 2 here makes x to the 3rd. We will now take that same 4x and distribute it times the minus 7x. Well, 4 times negative 7 is negative 28. Be careful here. You have x to the first power here and x to the first power here. So when we add our exponents, it is x to the 2nd power. The last one to distribute would be 4x times 12. 4 times 12 is 48. And there is only an x to the first power on the outside term. There is no x here next to the 12. So it is simply 48x. So our final solution is a 3rd degree trinomial with a leading coefficient of 8. Take a moment, look at our next example. It is a negative 3x squared that we will be distributing. Negative 3 times 7 is negative 21. And then x squared times x squared, if I add the exponents, 2 plus 2 is 4. Again, distribute the negative 3x squared to the negative xy cubed. Go ahead and place a 1 for a coefficient. So now when you multiply negative 3 times that negative 1, a negative times a negative is a positive 3. I will add these 2 x's with this 1x, making it x to the 3rd power. There are no y's in the term being distributed, but there is y to the 3rd power, so I will simply attach it y to the 3rd power. The last one to distribute is negative 3x squared times 4. Negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. There is an x squared on the outside term, but no x's on the 4, so it is simply the negative 12x squared. Take a moment, make sure you're okay with what we just did. If you need to go back and re-watch it now that you've written it down, take your time and go back. Move on when you're ready. The next thing we're going to get ready to view, some of you have already learned as the FOIL method. I am going to show you two different ways to multiply a binomial times a binomial. The first way is called the Punnett square method. You will first write the first polynomial along the side of the boxes and the second polynomial along the top side of the boxes. Each term should have its own box. These directions will make sense in just a moment when you see the first example. Once you have the two polynomials set up, you will multiply to fill each box, just like your old school back to third grade with your multiplication charts where you used your fingers to guide to find the answer on the multiplication chart. Remember to multiply the coefficients and add the exponents. When you're done, make sure you write the polynomial in standard form by adding the diagonal terms together. As long as you add like terms together, you'll see that they are diagonal in the boxes. Once you've got those steps down, go ahead and move on to the first example. The first example we have is x minus 2, which is a binomial, times x plus 4. There are several ways to get to this answer. I'm going to show you two, and then I'm going to ask you to pick which method you like to continue practicing. The first one, if we use the box method, our first binomial is x minus 2. The x gets this box, the negative 2 gets this box. The next binomial that I have is x plus 4. X would go down, x for that one, and a positive 4 for the bottom. Yes, I did draw the positive sign on purpose. We are now going to multiply old school x times x. The answer goes right here. X times x is x squared. Now I'm going to take x times 4, and that answer goes right in here. That would be 4x. To fill in this box, can you tell yourself what two things you are multiplying? Hopefully you saw it's the negative 2 and the x. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. This final box has just the two constants, 4 times negative 2, which is a negative 8. If I take to get my final answer, I'm going to look at these four terms. The only term that is squared is just x squared. In the middle, going the diagonal, you'll notice we have like terms here, 4 minus 2, or 4 plus negative 2. That's a positive 2x. There is only one number that is a constant with no variables on it. That is the negative 8. So our answer ends with minus 8. Take a moment, see if that makes sense. It's a visual way to explain what we just did. Now, if you look over to the right, you'll see the exact same problem written here, but we're going to solve it using distribution. Some of you have learned the FOIL method, which says first term times first term. So x times x is x squared. Now that x needs to be distributed to both things in the second parentheses. So I need to also distribute it to the 4. X times 4 is simply 4x. So if you're doing the FOIL method, that is outer times outer. I am now going to take that negative 2 in the first parentheses and distribute it to the two terms in the second parentheses. Remember, distribute means multiply. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. We are now going to multiply the negative 2 times the positive 4. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. That is the L out of FOIL, the last term times the last term. Hopefully, when you look here, you see that we have two terms that are like each other. They are both x to the first power. I'm going to keep my x squared because we're not doing anything to it, but I'm going to combine 4 minus 2x, which is a positive 2x. And the negative 8 does not have any like terms to combine with it, so we're going to simply write it down. Please notice we got the exact same answer using the square method versus distribution, which can also be called the FOIL method. I'd like you to pause for a moment and look and see which method you prefer. Because when you are ready to move on to example 2, I would like you to pick a method that you prefer. Do you prefer the square method? The first term is 2x and minus 6. The second polynomial is 2x and a plus 6. So would you rather use this method, or would you rather distribute here? Take a moment and make a decision which way you would like to go. Follow those directions and get your answer. Unpause the video when you are done to see how you did. So how did you do? Were you able to come up with 4x squared minus 36? Notice the positive 12x and the minus 12x equals 0 if you add together, so there's no need to write them down here. The same thing occurred here. We had 12x minus 12x, which was 0x. No need to write it down. Our final solution was 4x squared minus 36. So how comfortable are you feeling with the method you have chosen? Let's go ahead and try another one. Pick your method either way, and then unpause and see how you did. Take a moment, look it over. How did you do? Did you come up with 20x squared plus 43x minus 12? If you made any errors, take a moment and look and see where it was and make your corrections. Over here on the distribution method, I did do 4x times 5x, which was 20x squared. And then I did 4x times 12, which is the 48x. And then I took the negative 1 and distributed it. Negative 1 times 5x is negative 5x. And negative 1 times 12 is negative 12. For our next example, you will see x minus 9 squared. Please realize that that means you have x minus 9 not once, but twice. So take a moment, set it up, pick your method. Are you working well with the box method, or are you preferring distribution or the FOIL method? They both mean the same thing. Take a moment, pick your method, come back to check yourself when you're ready. So how did you do? Were you able to make it to x squared minus 18x plus 81? Just for a little visual entertainment, I'm going to show you how this box method really is the same idea as distribution or FOIL. It is simply a visual way to see it. If we were going to multiply x times x, that would be x squared. If we then did x times negative 9, that would be negative 9x. That comes right from these two boxes in here. The next one I would multiply is this negative 9. I'm going to distribute it to the x and to the negative 9. So when we do that, negative 9 times x is negative 9x. And then negative 9 times negative 9 is positive 81. So there you see, they are the same exact process, just a different way to represent your answers. Now we have something a little interesting. We have a binomial, 6x plus 5, times a trinomial, 2x squared minus 3x minus 5. Choosing the method that you prefer, I would like you to go ahead and attempt these. If you're going to do the box method, make sure your trinomial is on top since it's 3 long, and then make sure your binomial is going down because it is too tall. So 6x and a positive 5. If you're going to be daring here and use the distribution method, all you are doing is taking your 6x, and instead of having only 2 terms to multiply by, you have 3 terms to distribute it to. And then when you are done, you will distribute the positive 5 to all 3 terms in the second set of parentheses. So take a moment and see which method you want to try. When you're done, come back and check to see how you did. So how did you do with this one? Were you able to come up with 12x cubed minus 8x squared minus 45x minus 25? If not, take a moment if you use the box method and see if all 6 of your terms inside the squares are correct. Watch your signs as well. You'll notice over here for distribution, I didn't show any of my work. Here's what I would love to show you is another way to organize your work. When we do 6x times 2x squared, that is 12x to the third. If we do 6x times negative 3x, there's our negative 18x squared. There's our little 2. And then 5 times negative 5. 6x times negative 5 is negative 30x. Now what I'd like to show you, when I distribute this 5 and I get 10x squared, I am going to put that positive 10x squared right underneath its like term. I like to see the like terms right by each other, so I'm going to stack the like terms. 5 times negative 3x is negative 15x, so I'm going to place that underneath the other x to the first power. Now 5 times negative 5 is negative 25. So now when I go to combine my like terms, I have only one term that is cubed, 12x cubed. And then when I look at my squareds, I have negative 18 and positive 10, which is negative 8, and it's x squared. Remember, when you're adding like terms from last section, you keep it x squared, but you add the coefficients. So doing that again, they're both negative here. Negative 30 and negative 15 is negative 45x. And that lone constant on the end just stays minus 25. You will notice both of our answers, whether we use the box method or we use the distribution method, we still arrived at the same answer. Take a moment and make sure you're good with that. Here's our last example. I would like you to take a moment, no matter which method you choose, to go ahead and set up the problem and then see how you do and come back and check your answer. How did you do? Were you able to get to 4x to the fifth minus 6x to the fourth minus 10x to the third minus 12x squared plus 18x plus 30? You'll notice there were no like terms. Every term inside the boxes was to a different power. So we did not have any like terms to combine. So how are you feeling? Whether you're multiplying using the box method or you're distributing to the other terms, how strong are you feeling? If you're feeling good, then you're done with your notes and you're ready to get your assignment in class tomorrow. If not, please go back and rewatch any parts that you may need. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have complete notes.